Welcome back to Tailoring Talk and the long-awaited review of Casino Royale. Just a couple notes before you get into the episode. It was a long one. 2.5 hours we recorded for. We had such a great time, but I've decided to split this up into 4 parts, I want to say. This is part 1. I'll then release parts 2, 3 and 4 a couple days apart, just to give you a chance to download and listen to each episode. But we did have some technical issues as well, so there might not be a video version. But if you are listening to this on YouTube, thank you so much. I'll try and make it a bit more visually interesting. I'll stop yapping now. I apologise in advance if some of the sound quality is a little bit dodgy in some areas. Here we are. The Bondathon is back. Our review of Daniel Craig's Casino Royale.
This may be too much for a blunt instrument to understand. Any thug can kill. I want you to take your ego out of the equation.
So you want me to be half monk, half hitman?
I knew it was too early to promote you.
Well, I understand double O's have a very short life expectancy.
Hello Tailoring Talkers, it's time for the Bondathon. My friends and I are watching the entire James Bond movie series from beginning to end, one movie at a time. We deep dive into each film, covering everything from the plot, clothes, gadgets, cast, behind the scenes stories and our favourite moments. Please help the show by subscribing and leaving us a rating and a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button and hit subscribe. Step back into the Tailoring Talk time machine as we head to 2006. A time of gritty realism had taken hold of cinema, and we couldn't get enough of grounded in reality franchises like Jason Bourne and Chris Nolan's revitalized take on the Batman. Despite enormous box office success, 2002's Die Another Day was critically panned, and the producers decided it was time to go back to basics, starting with the original Fleming novel that introduced 007 to the world. Yes, it's time for Casino Royale. But first, let me introduce your co-hosts. First up, he's a teaching tech freak. If you were a wayward agent, he'd be the one sticking some weird tracking thing in your arm or elsewhere. It's the voice himself, John Evans. John, how are you?
I am hot, I am sticky, but I am ready for the podcast.
God,
I'm very well, thank you.
So full of yourself. Oh no, you're talking about the weather. Sorry.
The weather,
you're looking
very warm here.
Looking very dapper today, John.
Well, I've been out all night. I'm a bit of a dirty stop out. I haven't got changed, and I've been quaffing lots of Vespers overnight. You see, so I'm a little bit worse for wear more than anything else. So yeah. Otherwise, good. Actually, this is not a Vesper I'm having right now, by the way. Mixture.
Be a bit worried if Vesper was there with you. Also jealous. Yeah. Anyway, more about that later. Yeah. Next up. Hopefully there's no technical issue over in that corner of the screen, but there was no Q in Casino Royale. Why? Because he's here with us. It's our very own gadget guru with the heart of gold, Alex Hansford. Alex, how are you? Still here? We just announced Q Branch, and Q Branch is having technical issues over there. Brilliant. And finally, we thought we'd lost him. He's been absent from the Bondathon for what seems like an absolute age, no doubt in hiding because he lost over $100 million of some African warlord's hard-earned cash, trying to launder it during a poker game at a dodgy casino in Bognor Regis. Yes, my American audience won't understand that reference. Our mortgage advising card shark is back. It's Philip Rahman. Philip, how are you?
I'm good, Bobby. How you doing?
Good, thank you. We've missed you, dude.
Missed you too.
Yeah, man. Have you been like in some secret underground cell being interrogated, Phil, by any chance? You look like you've lost a bit of weight there, mate.
It's well, thank you. It's it's been a long time, but glad to be back.
Yeah. So Le Chiffre been smacking your balls, Phil. Spoiler alert. Sorry. And on the note on the subject of which, before we get started, we need to get our spoiler alert in. We will be spoiling the absolute living daylights out of this movie. So, if you haven't seen Casino Royale, what have you been doing for the last 18 years? Pause, go see it and rejoin us after. Guys, 18 years. My God, where has the time gone? It's crazy.
Old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel old.
A couple of years' time, it will be the 20th anniversary of Casino Royale. It's so weird. It's even weirder because we've obviously all rewatched the film for tonight, but it's still, it stands up. It's not like it's there's nothing in there that's really aged or dated apart from the mobile phone technology maybe, but otherwise it's held up pretty well. So, our usual memories of going to see it for the first time. Phil, you haven't been here for a while. Let's start with you. Were we working together in 2006?
Yes, we were. And this was the year I got married. And what was significant about this film was that, unlike any of the other Bond films I'd seen before, because I'd got into this industry of tailoring, like you, I noticed the suits a lot more, and I noticed the cut a lot more, and it just reminded me when I saw it again a few days ago, just how I felt about everything around and how glamorous it looked, and just how boring our normal lives are back home.
John.
The good thing about these Bond films is that they're one of the very few things that my wife and I can go and watch together and really enjoy. Because she doesn't really like many other things that have car chases and explosions in that I watch. But we made a regular thing of seeing all the Bond films together at the cinema. So I have very fond memories of these because they are very rare dates for me and my wife. Because 2006, we've been married for about 2 years. And I'm really impressed. I remember that, actually. And so she's a very big Daniel Craig fan. So, yeah, it's lots of good memories for me seeing the Bond films at the cinema.
Yeah. I'll never forget seeing this. So I was working with Phil at a big tailoring firm, and my boss's, I think, fiance at the time, or maybe they were married by then, actually. Myself, my then girlfriend, which would have been Caroline, I want to say, actually, no, hang on a minute. She's she's like 150 episodes behind.
You got time.
When did this film come out? Was it Christmas?
2006.
What date?
Yeah.
Do we know the date?
Yeah, I can find out for you.
It was definitely after we got married.
November. It was 15th of November 2006, but I don't know if that's the American release date or British.
Okay, so actually that was like the week before. That was the week before I met Carolina. So maybe I'll try and edit that bit out. Otherwise, in about 2 years' time, by the time she catches up, that's it. I'm dead. But at least we'll have finished the Bondathon by then.
Yeah.
So no, I was was I single? No, I was newly single. Yes, lots of heartbreak. That's for another podcast episode. So my boss, his wife, I, and maybe a couple of other people, we went to see it at Leicester Square, the day of release. One evening after work, so it would have been a Thursday or Friday night, I guess. And we went all tucked up, basically. And it was brilliant because when we got there were so many people wearing dinner suits or just dressed up really smart, women in evening dresses and stuff. It was such a big occasion. It was such a big event. And you'd think that there'd been a massive gap between Bond films, I don't know why, but it kind of felt like, because it was so new with this very fresh new Bond who, you know, the media had been saying doesn't look like Bond, all the rest of it, and then we had all the hype from the trailers and everything else. I don't know, it like Alex, it just felt like we were on the precipice of something that was going to be new and fresh and interesting and different, and was maybe going to take the franchise in a different direction. So yeah, I'll never forget that night, apart from forgetting whether I was actually with my current wife or not by that time, but I didn't. I met her about a week later, so there we go. Yeah, so there we go, 2006. So we're heading towards the 20th anniversary. We didn't actually. No, I kind of thought I was some sort of Bond character, but she thought I was a dick when she met me, so there we go.
Sorry, Bobby, if I may interject, I do remember
the best man always.
You were with Carolina at the time because she was at my wedding.
Shit, we met in
Definitely gonna edit this
2005.
podcast, Bobby.
We met in 2005.
Definitely gonna, mate, you're in a lot of trouble now.
Yeah. No, she was with me. We met in 2005.
Phil,
2006,
Carolina, in 2 years' time, Carolina's going to sit Bobby down on a chair without a seat and smack his balls to bits with a bit of rope when she hears this.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, the positive is that any of my lady fans that are watching or listening, I might be available in a couple of years' time, so just hang in there. Yeah.
Lucky things.
Every Bondathon episode, I managed to find a way, or we managed to find a way to put it in the bin before it even gets going. Let's talk about casting, because it was really controversial at the time. It was kind of when the internet was becoming super, like, you know, mainstream use and all of that. Because there was a lot of controversy over Daniel Craig being signed up as Bond, or chosen as Bond, rather. Some other actors that they considered, Dougray Scott. That guy seems to never catch a break. He was wanted for Wolverine in Bryan Singer's X-Men, but he couldn't do it because shooting for Mission Impossible ran over. Mission Impossible 2. One of the greatest spy movies ever made. Henry Cavill, because they were thinking about going in a younger direction, but he was only 22, so kind of missed out there. Trying to think who else was considered for the role. But yeah, there was a lot of negativity. There were online campaigns against him. There was a bondisnotblonde.com. There was craignotbond.com. danielcraigisnotbond.com. All of these websites were launched almost instantaneously and simultaneously to protest his casting. What did you guys think of Daniel Craig being cast as Bond when you found out, or did you just not give a shit?
I previously watched Layer Cake and loved him in that, and I thought perfect. And incidentally, Sean Connery, Sir Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and George Lazenby all supported his casting as Bond as well.
Yeah.
But no, Layer Cake was what really sold it for me, because he kind of I almost felt like that was his training film for Bond. Layer Cake, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I remember seeing Layer Cake and thinking to myself, this guy could be James Bond. In the same way that I saw Aaron Taylor-Johnson in Bullet Train, and I thought this guy could be Bond. Two very different films, but anyway. Yeah. But yeah, Phil, Daniel Craig, were you really aware of him at the time?
The only thing that I had seen him in was Munich, and I didn't make the connection in terms of seeing him as Bond. But what I would say about when Daniel Craig became Bond was it seemed like they were trying to find a way to find someone completely different who could be a real sort of hard man, but at the same time be a bit of eye candy for the ladies. And I think that they recognised that women were watching the films and they wanted someone that was going to appeal to both. And I think he did a good job.
Yeah.
Have you seen, Phil, you talked about Munich, have you seen Defiance? With
No, I haven't.
Daniel Craig. Now that's an excellent story about it's a World War II film where four Jewish brothers escape Nazi-occupied homeland of West Belarus in Poland. So I think he plays obviously speaking English, but a Polish Jew, and that's really worth a watch because he handles himself quite well in that in terms of weapons and military as well. So if you haven't seen Defiance with Daniel Craig, then you must see that if you like Munich.
I can't say that I liked Munich, but I'll certainly try out Defiance for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So, September 26th and 27th, the year before they obviously started filming and so on, Henry Cavill stepped into the Tux to screen test. Sam Worthington screen tested the day after Henry Cavill. And then Daniel Craig came after Sam Worthington. Daniel Craig says, when I became an actor, I never fantasized about playing James Bond. As a kid, yeah, but that was being James Bond. That was something else. That was fantasy. So, he sort of came into it. I think he had his reservations about taking on the role as well. And we know that he's kind of grappled with it ever since. He wanted to quit after Skyfall, the whole I'd rather slash my wrist thing. But, he did take the role, and the amount of preparation he went under, my God. When he got together with his personal trainer, he said to the guy, I need you to make me look like I could kill someone. And I think he did a really, really good job because he looks fantastic. I mean, physically, probably the best looking Bond since James Connery, Sean Connery.
He gained 20 pounds of muscle for this film. That's not fat, muscle. 20 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, that's a lot of money involved in there. But if you're playing Bond, you've got that money, haven't you?
But he also got himself prepared physically to do as many of his own stunts as he could, and I think he did pretty much all of the pickup shots in the movie. So the pickup shots, Phil, are where the actor doesn't do the actual stunt, but then kind of does the sort of last 20% of it where the camera's going to pick up the face. He lost a couple teeth during filming as well, and a lot of cuts and bruises, obviously. So, he did give it his all. Eva Green as Vesper Lynd. I'd never heard of her before this film. Alex, what did you think of Ava and Vesper?
I really liked how she played it because it's a complex character, and she holds a lot to her chest there. There's a lot hidden, and there did seem to be some depth there, which was really key to getting behind the character. So I think without that, we wouldn't have played and gone with it as much. But it's interesting because watched it recently with my wife, and she thought that her role, Vesper's role, was like completely genuine, which is a good sign of of an actor that plays it really well. So loved it. Really thought she did excellent.
I think Eva Green is the best Bond girl actress ever, hands down.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, better than Diana Rigg. No, because she just acted her way off the screen. I think she was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Never mind the thing, either if you're watching and you're still single by the time my wife ditches me in 2 years when she's got over the podcast, then let's get it on. But John, like you and I have had this debate, right? And we've had Diana Rigg up there for so long.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at all the boxes that these actresses want to tick if they're given the material, she just hits it out the park, right?
Yeah. I mean that the standout scene was the scene in the shower after the big fight on the stairs, which we're jumping ahead to, but that was a powerful scene. And it's not often you see that vulnerability in Bond girls. They're usually quite sassy and sort of, strong. I mean, she was a strong character, but I thought that was a really well written scene.
Yeah,
and it really, you connect with that character a lot more, I think, because Bond is used to the violence and the action, and she obviously isn't as this accountant coming in to work with him in the casino. And I just think that was really very clever, which you never see in the earlier films, really.
Yeah,
they're kind of playthings, all their foils, aren't they? In earlier films.
You said the words both strong and vulnerable. And it's interesting that you said that, because that's exactly why she was chosen. So she was picked from a bunch of actresses, which included Angelina Jolie and Charlize Theron. And the reason they chose her ahead of all the others was for her ability to portray both strength and vulnerability, which was essential for what they were aiming to be, a complex character. And you know, that's what they did. And she was lauded for her performance, and she is one of the most memorable female characters in the entire series, I think. Because when I think back to Bond films past, you can maybe remember faces and things, but you can't remember names and so on. There aren't that many that really stand out. Mads Mikkelson was cast as Le Chiffre, the poker-playing money launderer to terrorists and creepy international organisations. Philip, someone that you'd like to sit across from at a poker tournament?
I actually think I would, because this is someone who, when he has a bad hand or he's nervous about his hand, he bleeds out of his eye. I mean, what better tell do you need when you're playing poker? So for me, I would absolutely love to play against him.
But if people know your tell, you can use it to advantage, can't you, Phil?
Yeah, but though, if you look at how he plays his hands, which we'll come on to in a second, you know, he's not someone that I would be fearful of in a poker game. He plays a very, very wide range of hands, thinks he's playing based on percentages, but in this particular film, in the hands that he won, he got very lucky. In pretty much every single hand he won.
That's interesting.
But we'll come on to that in a second.
So yeah, Phil, so you can see the style of play from the way you can work someone out from the way they play, the way they lay down their hands. That's really interesting.
Well, it's with this particular game, because you get to see the community cards, you know, the 3 cards face up. Everyone gets to see those. So when you're playing cards, you can block out certain cards that the opponents can't have. So like, if we're talking about specifically hands the Chiffre was involved in, there was a hand where there was, where was it? I think it was 9-8 deuce.
I'm interested.
9-8 deuce.
Right, what is
and they were all
deuce?
hearts.
Yeah.
They were all hearts, and Le Chiffre was chasing a set of 2s, and he managed to get there on the river, and he was just blind lucky. That was all.
See, I find it really fascinating that you can watch that scene and get so much more out of it because you can look at the patterns of cards. Whereas us kind of dumbasses that are watching the film for the action and not really just like, oh, he's done some cards. And I like that you get more of it. But does it also show? Does that tell you that the writers and producers weren't expert players themselves, or did they write his hands in on purpose?
Okay. What I would say about this film is, and I want to be very clear about this. This is not a poker film. This is, when I looked at the credits, there was no poker experts involved in the film. There was no poker stars that had any credibility involved in the film whatsoever. So this is very much a Bond film that happens to have some poker in it. You know, a lot of this is artistic license. And one of the things that's significant about 2006 in particular is that this was the height of the poker boom. This was when millions and millions of people were watching poker on ESPN. There was the biggest tournament up until that point. 12 million was won by the person that won the World Series of Poker. And more importantly, poker was always played in cowboy movies or in the Wild West. And it was only in the previous 5 years that Hollywood realized that poker was actually being played in Europe and in European casinos with the dinner jackets in casinos in places like Vienna, Montenegro, France, you know, places like that. So that's the only thing that they made different. They didn't try and make it like these were expert poker players, although they did advertise Le Chiffre as a mathematical genius.
Yeah.
He didn't demonstrate that to me.
Right.
So Phil, thanks for that. So apparently Mads Mikkelson, he took himself off and trained with professional poker players to make his performance as authentic as possible.
Yep. And I think the way he put in the chips was a professional way of doing it. And they taught him one poker trick, which was easy to do on the screen. Would you all like to see the trick that he does?
Is it with the?
I can teach you that trick right now. It's
please.
very, very simple.
Hopefully, it'll be more exciting about talking, chasing twos and rivers and.
So,
okay. So at the moment, Phil has taken out 3 poker counters.
Four.
4 chips.
Yep.
4 chips, right?
And
For
what
the
you
audio
do,
people,
4 candles.
you hold in the middle finger and the thumb.
Yeah.
And what you do is you just simply kiss your thumb to your end finger.
Yeah.
Little finger.
And you just gently raise it and then bring it across the other side.
Okay.
So if I do it this side, like so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when he's when he's involved on the screen, you're looking and he's doing this.
Because he's practiced it. So what
And
our
then
audio
he's
listeners can't
looking-
see is Phil is flipping the chip from one end to the other, round the back, in one hand only, like what they do in the film, essentially.
Yeah.
So go back
And then
watch
he'll
the
put
film,
it
that's
down,
what Phil's doing.
and then he'll put chips in, and he makes it look very professional. He put the chips in a professional manner. I see people splash chips all the time, and it looks stupid at the poker table. He does at least make that look professional. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Phil. You're done for this episode. Judi Dench comes back as M. No, seriously, Phil, thank you. That was really good. So for everybody who's listening and watching, Phil actually does play poker at tournament level or whatever. Like, he goes around the country, plays in tournaments, and he actually posts, sometimes posts from those tournaments on his Instagram stories as well, actually. And it's all very interesting. I have no clue what's going on. Having been, Phil has tried to make me a student of poker and failed miserably. And it's not his fault, it's just because I'm useless. But my wife cleaned us out last time, do you remember?
She did, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's always
She's a tricksy woman.
You married well, Robbie.
always the quiet ones. Yeah, but she doesn't share, Alex, that's the problem. Judi Dench returns as M now. They basically wanted her to continue her role, because obviously she did all of the Brosnan films. She was Brosnan's M, basically, to provide a bridge between the two eras of Bond. Some audiences found it a bit confusing because it led to all of the discussions and debates about, is this an origin story? Does he eventually become Sean Connery, Roger Moore, George Lazenby, Timothy Dalton, the one who did it recently, Pierce Brosnan's Bond? Is this just a standalone thing? Is it a complete reboot? And are all the previous Bonds in the bin? It just started off all of these different lines and threads of debate about, what they could be doing.
Isn't that what we're doing right now about the next Bond as well, in terms of timing? What kind of? I know it's going to be a prequel, like an early younger Bond, but we're still making the same kind of speculation and supposition about the new Bond, aren't we?
Yeah, we are, but this was when the film came out. People were then really talking about where this kind of sat in the timeline, or even in this universe, if at all. I didn't really think too much about it. I just thought, okay, he's a younger Bond. He's just getting his 007 license, and Judi Dench is in it, so that's pretty cool. I mean, she was brilliant, and I think it was nice to see her being given more to do than she had really been in the previous ones, apart from The World Is Not Enough. But yeah, I mean, would you have liked to have seen a different M, Alex?
No, I thought it was great. Honestly, it's just because she's got that great screen presence, and I think you need that. She didn't have to justify herself at all. She just was like, no, I'm M.
Yeah.
Get on with it. And I think that's what we need. I think that's what we needed, because it's a pretty long film anyway, and so we don't need to introduce lots of new people. I didn't find it confusing, because I think everyone gets the whole thing of what happens when the Bond changes, gets like over confused. It's like when you have Doctor Who, everyone's like trying to work out what happens and like what's the memory going, and it's just think about it like a reboot, and then don't think about it too hard. And I think the nice thing about her continuity was she kind of reminded us that she was like, don't think about this too much. And by the way, I'm acting here, so just pay attention. And that was great. That was really, and it was, what I loved was that it was, it was very much like she was schooling a immature Bond, and that's exactly what we wanted to see, because I don't think it could have been pulled off by another actor. And he comes across as arrogant and that, but it's really nice that she sort of grounds him, and it's like stop.
Well, it's the same as she did with Brosnan's Bond. She wasn't afraid to slap the shit out of him and get him back in line.
Yeah, but he always had a smirk, and like he always had this smarmy answer, and there was the same, obviously. But I just think Judi Dench rules. So I just think it was wonderful to have her carry cross. But don't think about it too hard.
Jeffrey Wright is Felix Leiter. He appears in the casino finally. My favourite, and I think most likeable version of Felix that there's ever been in the entire series. Jeffrey Wright just brings so much gravity to any role that he touches. And I mean anything that guy does. He's absolutely incredible. And he had some great lines in this movie as well. So I was really, really happy to see him. And also it reminded me of, spoiler alert, for what happens in Daniel Craig's last film. But anyway, brought a tear to my eye. But yeah, Jeffrey Wright, fantastic. And then we had Giancarlo Giannini as Rene Mathis, who was, for me, he was an interesting character. We see him again in Quantum of Solace. But Mathis is basically, I don't know, what is he? He's like a sort of international fixer for the CIA and MI5, MI6, whatever MI he is.
He's a contact, isn't he? He's a
that's the way of describing him.
Yeah, but he helps Bond sort things out, like get rid of dead bodies and, get local police chiefs that could interfere in the mission arrested and all of that sort of stuff. But anyway, I really liked him. He was very charming. There was one moment that really made me cringe, though, which was when they're sitting in the cafe outside before the police chief gets arrested, and he meets Vesper, and the way he touches her. And I can't remember what he says, but I was just like, no, like someone call HR.
That's subtly establishing character, isn't it? Though, don't you think?
Yeah.
If you think about what happens later on in the film, like it's a certain red flags going on there straight away. But my other half, Becca, when she watched this with me, she said, "Yeah, he's a baddie." Straight away, she just didn't like him. So it's interesting.
Well, I don't think Rene was out and out bad, though, was he? He kind of operates in between the lines. So, whether he's bad or not really depends on your perspective and your point of view. Right?
He's like DJ from that Star Wars film, Don't Judge. He works for the dark side and the light side. He works for the Rebels and he works for the Empire. He just takes the highest bidder, takes the money off the highest bidder.
When you said DJ, I thought you were talking about the boxer character from Street Fighter, World Warriors.
No, it's what's the actor's name? Come on, help me out here, Alex. He's
I don't know.
Marvel films as well. He was the collector for the Marvel films.
Oh, Benicio.
Hispanic. Benicio del Toro's, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like DJ from
right,
yeah.
The Force, was it Force Awakens? I can't remember which one it was now.
He was in the second one, the one that
Last Jedi.
Yeah. The Last Jedi, yeah. Best Star
really,
Wars
really good film.
ever.
That really, really, really good Star Wars
Amazing. The best Star Wars film.
Brilliant.
Ever. Even better than the original A New Hope.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
We're gonna get in trouble.
Story. So again, for me, this was one of the most complex Bond movie plots because I've seen this film at least 20 times, and I only last night got a couple of things that my wife turned around and looked at me like I'm an idiot, which happens frequently, to be fair. And she's like, you only just realised that. But a lot of it was taken from the original source novel. There were scenes that were faithfully adapted, most notably the bull bashing scene, the torture scene. Yes, John. Thank you for that physical illustration. So Casino Royale, Ian Fleming's first James Bond novel, published in 1953. The rights to Casino Royale were held by producers Charles Feldman and Sony Pictures. So that was what was preventing Eon from doing Casino Royale until the late 90s. And in the end, I don't know the exact facts, so if any of you have got any more information on this, then either correct me or feel free to expand. But MGM had the rights to Marvel's Spider-Man character. Sony wanted Casino Royale. Sony. Eon wanted Casino Royale.
Eon Productions, yeah.
And then Sony were doing a takeover, I think, of whatever, no, Sony had the rights to... So MGM had Spider-Man. There was a trade that was done, basically. Sony got Spider-Man in return for then releasing the rights to Casino Royale so that they could then go ahead and make this film.
Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson didn't secure the rights to Casino Royale until the year 2000, when Sony exchanged them for MGM's rights to Spider-Man.
There we go.
Said.
Yeah. Very badly. Not as well as you. This is why you're much smarter than me. And you teach children. It had previously been adapted. So we know about the 1967 film with David Niven, which we need to do. Should we do that before Quantum of Solace?
Yeah.
Should we do that one next?
Well, there's two more Casino Royales, Bobby. There's the 1954 film as well, isn't there?
There's a 1954 series, television episode, sorry. It's a television episode. So whoever played Bond in that was the first person to play Bond. It wasn't David Niven. Or Sean Connery, rather.
Peter Sellers was the first Bond, wasn't he?
No, it was whoever played him in that 1953 thing.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, there you go. That's the end of part 1. Part 2 will be available for you in just a couple short days' time. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for your support of the show. Remember to hit that subscribe button. You can support the show by hitting the support the show link in the show notes, and if you're listening through a more traditional podcast app or player, there should be a link for you to text the show directly. So please do get in touch and let me know what you think of this film. See you very soon.